What's up, guys? So the reason I'm doing this video, I know I have done some giants and some rune dungeon level videos before. The reason I'm doing this one is because I have some guildies that have progressed to the point where I have one that just fused Vero and isn't at Giants B10 yet. So um, I know I'd recorded my runs and kind of like a brief of runes and teams and stuff back when I first started doing B10 clears, and I thought that a video a little bit more in depth of like a tutorial of what monsters, the reason you're using those monsters, what mechanics are important, what runes and stats are important to get your teams first together for your first B10 clears of each of the different dungeons for giants, dragons, and Necro. And then some rifting too. I've really been putting a focus on a raid 4 team. So I'll try to go a little bit more in depth with some of that. So for early game players, really, or some people that might even consider themselves mid, that aren't clearing GB10 and DB10 for giants and dragons, the first most important thing there is having Veramos. So the reason that Veramos is so important is a couple different reasons. So his main thing is that he's so important as the first fusion monster and for your essential run teams is his passive, which essentially does a cleanse of your whole team anytime he moves. Huge, especially to get rid of defensive break in giants and in dragons with dots. Him being the leader, he has one of the best early leader skills with the 33% HP. Huge for your first teams. And then his skills, he has an AoE that has the chance of a stun. And then he does some okay damage. What you're really looking for with Veramos is you just want to keep him alive. And there's two different schools of thought with Veramos, which is Swift or Violent Ruined. Speed HP and 246 is pretty universal. The difference here is that when you don't have access to Violent Runes early, Swift seems to be the way to go. What I personally did with my first Giants runs was I did a Swift build until I was building to clear Dragons B10. Swift Vero worked for me through Dragons B9. The idea for Violent on Vero that's so huge that I didn't get, nobody explained to me, that I figured out when playing is that when he's on Violent, if there's 2 debuffs on your whole team and he Vio procs, he gets rid of not just a single debuff, but multiple as he Vio procs. Speed is super important because you want him going early in the turn to get rid of those debuffs. Let me try to move this. Bear with me a little bit. Haven't done this with a camera. Okay, so this team here is your basic for your first Giants teams. So Bella, Swift or Violent, same thing. What's huge with her is fast and surviving. That's what's so big about the speed HP builds and as speed subs on Veramos and Bella is you want them going quick. You want that debuff cleanse going off on Vero as quick in the turn as possible, as well as with Bella, the heal and the attack bar fill. I found that accuracy on Bella is a huge deal too. You want it at least at 50% because her defensive break is really big on those teams. They can make the difference with clearing a wave. With Bernard, Swift all the way, speed HP. you want all your best speed runes on Bernard. You want Bernard going as early as humanly possible, not just in PvE, like dungeon, but specifically in PvP. I'll show you in a second. The idea here is that Bernard goes first every single turn, every single wave with his speed buff, which in turn is going to help the rest of your team. Again, I haven't really been able to accomplish with the speed that I'm looking for a high accuracy. I think Bernard's accuracy is really underrated to also add a second defensive break in the team in addition to Bella. And then the idea with Shannon here is you want Shannon to be the second fastest if possible. What you're really looking for is you want Bernard to go first, speed buff, Shannon to go second before any attack from enemies. Really, the reason that she's here is she's not here for damage at all. It's all utility. She's here to attack buff and defense buff your whole team, as well as the AoE slow. And the reason that she's Despaired Rune is with that AoE that hopefully lands a slow, she also throws out some stuns for you. I'll show a little bit more detail on that in a second. So the idea with this team is these are your utility mons. Vero's your leader, your cleanser, Bella's your healer and attack buff, your attack bar buff. Bernard is your speed buff and attack bar buff. They're both landing defensive breaks, and Shannon a defense buff and attack buff for damage to your whole team. Hopefully a slow, an AoE slow, as well as AoE stuns. And this last spot typically is for a nuke on your Giants B10. What's real common is something like Lucian. Somebody with AoE damage that's really going to be doing the most of the damage to clear waves. In my first team I used Lucian. And typically what you want is you want Bella and Veramos both 6-starred as well as your nuke. And in my first Giants B10 runs, Bernard and Shannon were both 5-starred. And I found that 4-star runes worked. That's where I was at, as long as I powered all the 2, 4, and 6 slots up to plus 12. I have evolved my runs right now to where I am using Sigmaris. If I can get this to work. I'm using Sig as my AoE damage, and I think that he's a great example also when doing a video like this, a tutorial like this, because he's another fusible mon, and because you want Sig helps a lot in Dragon's B10 teams. You're lessening the monsters that you have to concentrate focusing resources into early game and mid game for your first teams to less monsters if you're able to use them in both teams, Dragons and Giants. I found that I put a huge focus into Sig when building my B10, and therefore he accomplished a better goal on my Giants teams for AoE damage. Mine's still Fatal. It's an attack CD attack build. He had great subs on these runes. They powered up quick for me. I skilled him. His AoE skilled quickly, so I stopped investing devils into him. But let's run, and I'll kind of show you the idea here. The idea here is that with each wave, what you're going to find is you're not able to auto at first. You're going to have to manual. And what you want is in this general order, before any enemy goes, you want Bernard to go first to throw the speed buff. Because I had invested more speed subs, my Veramos is quicker than the other monsters. Typically what happened before when I was first starting is that my Shannon went next. And this is key, I can't stress this most of all, what's super important here is immediately after Bernard goes off, Shannon goes before any enemy attack every single wave, and you get this defense buff. This defense buff to the whole team was crucial because of lack of rune quality and substats. That defense buff going off every wave before any attack from enemies is what helped my team survive to where I was able to get my first clears. Here, I'm just going to land the defensive break on the unstunned opponent. Vioproc, so I'm going to stun, go for another defensive break on the unstunned opponent. And then my AoE nuker is going to go. I got 2 defensive breaks land, attack buff on the whole team. And that's the goal. You might not be doing damage like that. You might not be landing every defensive break. You might not be getting that many stuns. But essentially that's the goal there in each wave. And when I was manualing, I wouldn't waste unnecessary skills there because the wave was cleared. Again, I want Bernard to go first and speed buff the whole team. I'm going to go for the AoE stun. Here, Shannon's was not up yet on cooldown because I cleared the first wave so quick. Only because of where my account's at, I wiped that first wave out quick. Typically, it might have taken you an extra turn to clear, and her buff would not be on cooldown, and you'd be able to use it. I'm going to go for the extra stuns here. I'm going to land the defensive break on the unstunned units. I always killed the crystals on the ends first before the golems because I found that they did more damage. Here I'm going to go golem first because he's unstunned and he's got a defensive break on him. And what you're going to find is if you follow kind of this methodology, it's going to be a little bit easier to see a team's synergy and cohesion come together. And as you're manualing, if you really read skills and it makes a little bit more sense why you're using the monsters that you are for teams that people say are commonplace. Real quick on this third wave, I killed these ads first before I attacked the main mini-boss on my first runs. So as it's autoing here, you can kind of see the cohesion and the synergy of this team. You have an AoE. You have the HP leader buff, you have a cleanse, you have an AoE healer in Bella with an attack bar boost. You have a AoE, team speed buffer in Bernard. You have an a team-wide attack buff, defensive buff, an AoE slow and hopefully stun in Shannon. And then that 5th spot typically is going to be for your main damager and nuker, and everybody's monster availability is going to be different for that 5th slot. I know it's real common for people if they don't have a decent AoE nuker or farmer built, what they do is they use Darian, Light Vagabond, and the reason is because he helps your whole team survive longer with his passive, and he has a defensive break. It helps people with their first early teams also. So I hope that this helped kind of breaking down why you're using the monsters that you are with the mechanics, the order that you want them to go in. What's unfortunate is that with that first Giants team, what you're going to find is all the monsters that are in that basic team are going to be runed similarly, and people have a hard time gathering that many of the same runes. And what I mean by that is really 3 swift sets of speed HP for all Veramos, Bella, and Bernard. In my opinion, Bernard should get the best speed subs of all those sets. Then probably Vero, then Bella. Shannon, you're going to look for Despair, Speed HP. And obviously the secondary sets for all those monsters can depend on what you have and availability, and you're going to acquire more as you clear B7, B8, and it's going to make it a little bit easier. I'll just reiterate here real quickly, and I'll kind of show you the runes on each of those monsters again real quick as I say it. I had my first B10 clears with Vero, Bella, and my nuke, which was Lucian, all 6-starred. Bernard and Shannon were both 5-starred. And I only had 4-star runes that were plus 12 power up in slots 2, 4, and 6 because they're the main stats that make the biggest difference. The rest of my runes were probably plus 9. You know, the 1, 3, and 5 slots aren't as significant a difference in stats if you power them up as 2, 4, and 6. So my Veramos now is Violent, Speed, HP. My Bella, Violent, Speed, HP. Give you a second to look at the stats, maybe screenshot it. Bernard, Swift, Speed, HP. An Energy, a Guard, or a Focus subset is all good there. Focus would probably be ideal for me to help boost my accuracy up a little bit if I can end up finding the right runes. You know, the reason I have the runes that I do on them is because the subs worked. You know, again, I was looking for heavy speed there. That's about the best that I can do with where my account's at now. And then Shannon, Despair. Focus is huge there, I think, is her second set. To help land that AoE slow on her second skill. I hope this helps you guys. I got a couple of guildies I'm hoping specifically that'll benefit from it. Feel welcome to leave comments. My in-game name is Technician. And I'm going to do a similar video for Dragons, I believe. Here tonight I'm off work. Not feeling well. I'm kind of just sitting around playing. So I hope you guys liked it. And I'll try to continue posting some videos like this. I think that there's some content out there that kind of lacks the detail and kind of explaining team synergy and skills and cohesion and why you're choosing, or people choose the monsters that they do, and why specific rune sets or stats help those specific monsters, specifically as you're trying to build your first core teams. I think a lot of people early and mid-game struggle with that. So yeah, I'll try to do a little bit more content like this, and hope you guys enjoyed. Maybe I'll do another account overview, because my account's progressed a little bit since I made a video. Thanks guys, hope you enjoy.